Hello, hello, and welcome to this channel, Highly Sensitive Wisdom. My name is Susanna, and today's topic is why being highly sensitive is a great asset in spirituality. So, in recent videos, I have been focusing on sharing biblical, spiritual principles and biblical wisdom, and yeah, I did in my Bible today as well. But I also realized that not everyone is interested in that kind of wisdom. Not everyone is, interested in going deeper in their study of the Bible, or not everyone feels, receptive to that. And I totally get that. I resisted it for many years too. So today I will be speaking about sensitivity. Yes, sensitivity as well. I mean, spirituality in a broader sense, and how our sensitivity helps a great deal, both when it comes to becoming more aware, when it comes to learning from our past experiences and extract wisdom from those, and also, yeah, there are so many. We have so many superpowers as highly sensitive people, but the world consistently tells us the opposite, that sensitivity is weakness. Oh, you're too sensitive, you're too intense, you're too much of this, you're too much of that, or you're simply too much. Or can't you just fit in like everyone else? No, I cannot. I was not born to fit in. I was born to, transcend all the limitations, and I was born to lead, and that is probably your case as well, dear watcher, if you're a highly sensitive person. So we'll shift that narrative from the narrative that the world has about sensitivity, and I will give you a few examples why it is a superpower to be highly sensitive, and especially when it comes to spirituality. So if you enjoy this content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and also share your aha moments in the comment section so that we can uplift and inspire each other and learn with each other also, because I want this channel, Highly Sensitive Wisdom, to be a living community, and I really love it, love it, love it when you share your key takeaways or your reactions in the comment section. So thank you in advance for your participation. All right, so I have brought a few different books that I rely on heavily when it comes to spirituality, in addition to the Bible. So one book that I have been quoting from a lot, I will not be quoting today, just showing these books. Some of them you are probably already familiar with, and some of them maybe not. But yeah, I want to show them to you anyway. That could be a source of inspiration, or give some further guidance, so that I don't just speak from my own first-hand experience. I know that not everyone is probably interested in that either. So, I also want to always back up what I'm sharing with, written material when it is available. So, this book, I've been quoting from it quite a lot, Pure Human, The Hidden Truth of Our Divinity, Power and Destiny, from or by Greg Braden. It was published last year, 2025, and it has very quickly become one of my all-time favorite books of all times, because so much wisdom in this book. He connects the dots in such brilliant ways, and also because it's a book of topics that are very relevant to our world today and what is happening. I will not be extending a lot about this book, because I've already quoted it so many times in different videos, including the most popular video on this channel so far, God Eternal Within the Body. I quoted also from this in that book, and I'll drop the link to that in the description below. We are at a crossroads in human history, human evolution. So the tendency is that people who are already spiritually awake and spiritually aware, they will become even more awake and even more aware. People are spiritually asleep, they will keep being asleep. And not only that, there are so many forces in Western contemporary societies, in the world, in the matrix. And yes, I did record a video about also decoding the matrix in real life. I will drop the link to that video in the description below. And yeah, there's an entire playlist of videos now on decoding the matrix, and another playlist that may interest you. But yeah, we are at the crossroads. So either if you are already spiritually awake and aware, we tend to become even more spiritually awake and aware. if we are spiritually asleep, we tend to become even more asleep, spiritually speaking, and live even more in denial. So there are so many forces that work, tirelessly to program our subconscious minds and our, so many narratives that are simply not true, and so much deceptive going on. Which also means that as highly sensitive people, we are more likely to both look for the truth and find the truth. And, we sense so many things in our own bodies. And that's why it can be such a trap to believe the narratives that we have been told about sensitivity being a weakness, or sensitivity being, like just why don't you just adapt like everyone, just fit in, and applying group pressure and all kinds of things. My understanding is that in this crucial point in time in humans' history and human evolution, highly sensitive people are needed even more. We are needed more than ever. So not only do we need to own our sensitivity and be proud of being sensitive, and inform ourselves about both the personality trait of high sensitivity. And I also presented two books in the very first video of this channel. Welcome to the channel. I'll drop the link to that in the description below if you need some more guidance on where to get started, if maybe you discovered recently that you are highly sensitive. But my understanding is that right now, in this point in time in human history and human evolution, we highly sensitive people, we're needed even more than ever, because we have so much awareness already, and we are often fast learners. We are motivated to learn, we're hungry to learn, also because we feel everything so intensely. So if we're in the middle of something very difficult, like that was my case in France, and I've spoken extensively about that in previous videos, we're very motivated to learn, and we're very motivated to find out what is true, and not just conform to the narrative we're being told, or conform to what other people are telling us, because most people have a very limited understanding of reality. No one has all the answers, and most people are simply not motivated enough to dig deep enough to find the answers, because most people are so focused on their own situation, making money, if they have children, take care of the children, all of the tasks to carry out, in their daily life, and so forth. So, very few people are motivated to dig deep enough to find, the root cause for things, and to connect the dots, because we are also conditioned to separate reality in many, many, many different sizes, and only focus on one very narrow niche, one very narrow niche of knowledge, or a very narrow niche of professional activity, or a very narrow niche of understanding, which makes people become experts in very narrow fields, which is great for their career, but cuts them off from all other kinds of knowledge, and which also keeps them on a superficial level of understanding things. And we highly sensitive people, our nervous system is wired in such a way that our we understand things more deeply, because on the one hand, we process things more deeply. That's a natural innate trait in us. We process things more deeply, and we are more we pick up on subtle things that others miss. And subtle things could be, on an energy level, could be on an emotional level. We feel the emotions of other people, or we can intuitively know how someone is doing, even if they say, they put on their social mask and say, oh, everything's fine, I'm fine, everything's good. And we intuitively know, no, they're lying, something is going on there. We feel it in our own body, especially if it's someone close to us. It has happened to me many times. I have woken up, during the spiritual hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. Just, woken up, and like someone in, for instance, my family of origin is suffering right now. And, I'm feeling their anxiety, or I'm feeling their, agony, or even having panic attacks. That was not my panic, that was panic of someone else in my family of origin, because we're all energetically connected, even if we don't maybe meet them very often in the physical world. We're still interconnected energetically. So yeah, I can feel those things in my body, and that is the case for most highly sensitive people. So on the one hand, when we go through hardships, we suffer much more than anyone else, or much more than the average person. But then again, when we focus on something to really learn something, we also learn on a deeper level. We also learn faster, and we are also usually very motivated to learn, which also makes it easier for us as highly sensitive people to connect the dots. And over the course of a lifetime, if you keep cultivating this hunger for learning, and you keep digging for the truth, like I have been doing for the past 25 years or so, or even more, at some point you start seeing a lot of patterns that others don't see. So yeah, and when it comes to spirituality, and when it comes to consciousness, nothing is ever wasted. So even if, for instance, I've used this as an example many times now on this channel, but I would have preferred not to go through the hardships and not suffer the way I did in France during those 7 horrendous years, and even worse during the detox after that has been pure hell and pure torture. I would have preferred not to go through that. But then again, if I look at all of the things I have learned, all of the life lessons I've learned, all the personal growth I've experienced, all of the spiritual growth I've experienced, my learning curve and my curve of, evolution in my own life, it has been, exponential, like, like a rocket, it has been exponential. So during the last decade, I have suffered much more than before in my life, in my adult life at least. But then again, I have been able to gather so much wisdom that most people would need, I would say, at least 30 years to gather all that, or more. And only if they are motivated to find out the answers. If they are not motivated, they could spend an entire lifetime not learning those things, even in 30, 40, 50, 60 years, they would just stay in their daily routines, like so many do. So depends how you look at it. So even suffering is not wasted when it comes to consciousness and when it comes to spirituality. So truly, as I see it, being highly sensitive, that is my greatest asset. I won't change that for anything in the world ever. And I'm very high up on the spectrum or the scale of sensitivity. I'm in the top 5% most sensitive people alive on planet Earth today. And yeah, that comes with a lot of challenges living in a not very sensitive world. But then again, I mean, there's so much richness in this journey of being highly sensitive, learning more about both who you are and how you function, how this world functions, and using the tools, the assets that you have been given as innate gifts for this lifetime. So truly, I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. So yeah, read this one if you want some information on what is going on right now in the world and where we are headed, because things will get more challenging. I've already received this information from the spiritual world, through my intuition, because yeah, highly sensitive people often have a very developed intuition as well. And I did record a video about the power of intuition. I'll drop the link to that video in the description below. Yeah, so I've already received information from the spiritual world through my intuition, saying that, oh, those experiences you had in France, those hardships, that was just practice. That was just practice to develop, resilience in you and develop certain, character traits and a certain understanding that you need further down the road, because the real hardships, they are still ahead of us. And not just for you, but for all of us. So yeah, if you have been shocked by things I've shared that I went through in France, yeah, you better prepare yourself, because things will get even more difficult in the future. So we have to prepare ourselves now for war. Yeah, we have to prepare ourselves for war. And highly sensitive people have a key role to play in this, because we are so aware. Because the world has mistaken sensitivity for weakness, but that is also because the world believes in lack. And the world believes so hard in lack, and the world doesn't care about how consciousness works. They're already agendas, that have been around for, in some cases, a few decades, in some cases for millennia, like patriarchy that has existed for millennia. That's an agenda. So, and we can see through that often as highly sensitive people. In our younger years, maybe not so clearly, but as you accumulate life experience, as you go through both moments of joy and hardships, and you make a conscious effort to extract whatever wisdom you can from all the experiences you've been through and identify patterns, identify the principles at work, including spiritual principles, you will be much more equipped than the average person to deal with the hardships that are ahead of us. So never underestimate the power of your sensitivity, and never berate yourself just because the world does. Who cares what the world is saying? You have to be proud of who you are and own your worth, and own that your sensitivity truly is a superpower. And your sensitivity through your intuition and through other means that connect you to the spiritual realms, they give you a great advantage, because when others have to rely on what the mainstream news outlets tell them, when they have to rely on what mass media tell them, when they have to rely on what other people in their social circle or their friend groups or their professional settings, and they have to rely on those things. And yeah, no one has all the answers. So when something very surprising arrives, like the pandemic of COVID a few years ago, most people will be taken by surprise. And and yeah, then it's really helpful to have your intuition to guide you, because if the masses are in a state of panic or despair, or just don't know what to do, like was the case during the first lockdown. I went through 3 lockdowns in France during the COVID pandemic. When the masses are in panic and in despair, and things arrive as a surprise, no one knows what to do. That can be, the group pressure and the, social behaviors of people can become quite destructive, and very irrational, very illogical, and very unpredictable. So yeah, since we have this channel, or this, this means of communication with higher realms of reality that have, the bigger picture, which we do not have. We don't have to rely on all the fear-based narratives. We don't have to rely on what others are telling us according to their limited perspective. Because yeah, let me tell you a harsh truth. Most people don't cultivate their critical thinking. Most people don't look actively for the truth. Most people are in their comfort zone, and as long as they have money entering their bank account every month, or at every, so often, as long as they have somewhere, comfortable enough to live, as long as they have some kind of source of identification in a social setting, whether professionally or as a student, or in a setting of a spiritual community, or whatever kind of environments you are in, dear watcher, you need sources for identification, or identity rather, and that usually comes in the interactions with other people. So as long as people have their basic needs met, and yeah, they have a sense of, yeah, things are moving forward, I'm not turning around in circles, no one likes that. But when you have a sense of, yeah, we're moving forward, I get up every morning when the alarm clock rings, and I do what I have to do. So few people, so most people do that. That's what the masses do. So few people are interested in going deep enough and learning what's really going on under the surface. But highly sensitive people usually do, which gives us an advantage further down the road, because we can foresee things that for others seem to appear out of the blue. For others seem to be very random, or coincidence, or like bad luck, or like, oh, why is this happening to me? I'm such a good person. This shouldn't be happening to me. They don't realize the mechanism going on under the surface and connecting the dots, and cause and effect. And yeah, I have also recorded videos about this previously. There's one you can watch, which is called 3 Kinds of Mirrors That Show You Who You Are and Who You Are Not. I'll drop the link to that video in the description below. Another video yeah, I was mentioning, hardships and what to do when everything is chaotic. I recorded a video about that, what to do when everything is chaotic. Because when you are in the middle of chaos, when you are in the middle of uncertainty, when you're in the middle of some kind of crisis, when you're in the middle of like everything is just working against me or everything is difficult, what do I do? I did record a video about that also. It's called What to Do When Everything is Chaotic. I'll drop the link to that in the video, in the description below. So yeah, I hope with these examples, and yeah, I'll show the other books that I brought. And I hope with these examples that can help you, dear watcher, if you are a highly sensitive person yourself, to reframe some of the narratives we have been told over and over again, and some of the misunderstandings or misconceptions about sensitivity in the world, because so many people feed their minds with what others are feeding them. As I said, traditional or conventional media outlets like news and stuff, mass media, films and series, all kinds of entertainment, social media, what group pressure from their peers, and the perspective they have according to their professional activity or professional field of activity, or if they are students, the specific area of studies. So everyone has just, quite limited, um, quite limited perspective. Most people, the masses. So you have to be aware of that, dear watcher, that if you have heard many times, oh, you're too sensitive, you're too intense, you're too much, you're this or that, or why do you refuse to adapt? You should fit in like everyone else. No, you should not. You're not born to fit in. You have to empower yourself by learning more about high sensitivity and other topics that I bring to the table in this channel, Highly Sensitive Wisdom. And that is also why I don't limit myself to speak only about high sensitivity and the personality trait of high sensitivity. I also speak about a wide variety of topics that go from everything between, developing discernment, decoding the matrix, your relationship with God, your relationship with your own body as a living truth, a living lie detector, because your body knows what is true and can separate what is true from what is false, which your mind cannot do unless you train your mind to see those things. But your body has an innate ability and capacity to distinguish what is true and what's false, which your mind does not. You have to train your mind to learn that. And yeah, we are not trained to do that usually, and neither in school nor at university. That we have to learn for ourselves. So yeah, I'll show you the other two books that I brought. This one I've also mentioned in several videos now, and I have been both quoting from it and also developed more. Power versus Force: The Hidden Determinants of Human Behavior by Dr. David R. Hawkins. So I developed this more in the video Everything is Frequencies, Energies. No, Everything is Energy, Frequencies Explained. I'll drop the link to that in the description below. And yeah, also in a few different videos, but that is where I draw the most heavily on this book. He developed a scale of consciousness, which is super useful for understanding both human consciousness and consciousness, in more general terms. Everything in the universe has frequency, and there are different levels of frequencies. And accordingly, what will manifest in our lives depend to a very large extent our level of frequency. Which is also why we need to learn how to raise our frequency, elevate our consciousness, which will have a direct impact on, both our mind, both our body, our spirituality, how we see the world, how we understand things. And yeah, it will make it easier for us also to manifest what we want when we know how it all works under the surface, and we cannot stay just on surface level. By staying surface level, we are giving our power away, and we have no idea just how powerful we are until we dig deeper on these topics. Another book that I have not recorded videos about yet, but I will do in the future, because this has been hugely eye-opening to me when I started meditating and started learning more about all kinds of things related to spirituality. The Power of Now, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment or by Eckhart Tolle. So he published this in the 1990s, and this book has become hugely successful. So the version I have is the 20th anniversary edition. And yeah, Eckhart Tolle is super in demand as a spiritual leader worldwide. He's one of the top ranked spiritual experts and leaders. Yeah, and it all started with this book, and the content in this book is still very relevant today, even though it was published decades ago. The content is still super relevant, and yeah, a hint is when he speaks of the power of now. That is also what is known as being in the zone. So both artists and elite athletes, they often speak about being in the zone. So when they are in the zone, they are at their best and they can do a lot of things with a minimum of effort, and everything seems to be just flow. So being in the now or being in the zone is also known as flow state. So there are different names in different kind of context or social settings. The name is different, but basically it's the same thing. So living in the now or being in the zone or being in the flow state, those are mostly interchangeable. And yeah, I've experienced also being in that state. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So reading this can also be quite eye-opening if you haven't yet. Even though I do suspect you're watching if you're a highly sensitive person and you have known for a few years that you are highly sensitive, you've probably already come across this book because it's a very important reference in spiritual communities. So with these references, I trust that you have a good start, or you can reread those if you read them, a few years ago, because as our consciousness evolves, even if it's the same book, you are not the same person, and your level of consciousness is not the same as a few years ago. So even if you have read them already, yeah, feel free to read them again. You will discover new things every single time because you have evolved. Your consciousness has evolved, and you have to know also, dear watcher, that we are living in times where time is accelerating, not just for highly sensitive people, but for all of us. And that means also that, for instance, if you want to raise your frequency, you can do so faster. You can do so in a shorter amount of time than previously. So everything is accelerating, which means that in either direction you are going, things will accelerate regardless, which makes it so much more important to make conscious choices and not just, when I say conscious choices, I mean active choices, not just choices by default. I mentioned that also in the previous video, the 3 biggest lies we've ever been told. I'll drop the link to that video in the description below. So if we only make decisions, choices by default, passive choices, yeah, you still have to carry the weight of the consequences of those choices. So it's much better to make an active choice, to inform yourself, to empower yourself, and make active, conscious choices. Because either way, you have to carry the weight of the consequences. Yeah, so we are always being held accountable regardless. So yeah, it's not easy to be human. I can tell you that. I have probably already reached that conclusion as well, dear watcher, that it's difficult, it's complex to be human. But yeah, I wholeheartedly believe, in my soul, that being highly sensitive is a great asset, that it gives so many advantages for us and so much richness to our life journey and to our existence on this planet Earth. And I do believe that it's not in vain that so many people, wake up to the realization that they are highly sensitive. And probably I should think there are also more children being born as highly sensitive people. Now, I don't have scientific data to back that up. This comes from my own observations, but I have noticed that sensitivity seems to be more, common now, and people start speaking about it more openly. Like there's not so much taboo around sensitivity anymore, which is great. That means that the efforts of the pioneers of high sensitivity, such as Dr. Elaine Aron and others, their work has truly brought a lot of fruits and benefits for all of us, because now it's easier to speak also about sensitivity. It's so many people know now, at least, that exists. Because I will give you an example. When I studied at university to become a psychologist, where I studied, this high sensitivity wasn't mentioned once. That wasn't even included in the courses about, personality traits, theories of personality traits. That wasn't even mentioned once. I had to discover that on my own several years after graduating as a psychologist. But no, yeah, it's people are speaking about it more openly, and that's also why I'm passionate about sharing that I am highly sensitive, so that more people have the courage to speak up too, so that you don't feel the need, or that you have to hide behind. Well, all people have a social mask, but you don't have to hide your sensitivity because somehow that's perceived as flawed, Um, and let me remind you also where silence is imposed, that's where the most abuse happens. Abuse thrives in silence. So if you want to, take your power back and stand in your power and be sovereign and, stand up for your rights and also help other fellow HSPs, do share that you are a highly sensitive person, so that it becomes considered normal in society to be highly sensitive. So we will not have to be seen as, oh, different, or I don't know, like, oh, that's weird. No, it's not. It's an important part of the population, generally speaking, is highly sensitive, but many people don't know it yet, or they don't want to speak about it because they don't want to have a label like, oh, this person is somehow flawed or weak or whatever. Those are just narratives. Those do not represent the truth at all. Had that been the truth, yeah, I mean, the world is an insane place. The world is a very harsh place. As I said, the mindset that dominates in the entire world is the mindset of lack, and that creates all kinds of conflict and war, and people competing against each other, and people difficulting each other's lives instead of helping each other out as community, because yeah, they have to look after their own best interests, and so many people get stuck also in their ego. They have to defend what's theirs, and believe that's the way to go. So more sensitivity in the world will only make the world a better place, and a place where there will be easier to live for all of us. We have so many gifts to bring, to this world, so we cannot conform to the narratives of this world and think that what they tell us is true. Obviously, if we have had many experiences where people in a position of power over us, such as a parent while we were growing up, or such as an abusive romantic partner, or such as a toxic work environment, where where people had to be, mean towards each other to survive, because that's how those in the leading positions made sure they stayed in leading positions. Then maybe you have internalized to some extent, especially in your subconscious mind, that being sensitive is something bad in some shape or form. It's not. That's our superpower. So we have to flip the narrative, flip the coin, and whether you want to speak about it openly, like I am doing, or not, know that your sensitivity is truly a superpower. And when things are going downhill in this world, that we are fooled to believe is mainly a physical, material world, that's just a tiny part of it. Spiritual world is just as real. And I did record previous videos also about that. You can watch the deception of perception, and about Satan and how Satan works in this world. I will drop the links to those videos in the description below also. So there are many levels and many layers to reality and to this world, and to us as well as individuals. Remember that also what you focus on, you get more of. So when you focus on all the good things of being highly sensitive, you can also empower yourself from the inside out, so that whatever other people tell you, they do not have to agree with you, but you have to stand firm that sensitivity is a good thing, and that sensitivity is, that's a gift you were given when you were born. Because yeah, high sensitivity is an innate trait. That is not something we developed because of our life experiences on this planet. That is an innate personality trait. So yeah, we need to stand in our power and, make the most of it, make the most of that which we have been given. So with these final words, I will wrap up this video, dear watcher. So I will start recording a new video series, more focusing on high sensitivity, and starting with this one about sensitivity and spirituality. But yeah, I will record other videos. So please let me know also in the comment section what kind of topics you want me to cover specifically about high sensitivity, and how we can flip that narrative and, strengthen what we already have innately in us. And how we can harness the power of sensitivity, regardless of what other people tell us, or regardless of what the world is trying to tell us, or regardless of, most of opinions of people. That's just noise in a way. You can just dismiss most of the opinions, like, yeah, that's just noise. Yeah, whatever. I had to learn that the very hard way in France. You cannot listen to all of the opinions because, yeah, most opinions don't matter anyway. That's just noise, except if they come from experts who have done thorough research on what they are speaking about, or who have an extensive experience of what they are talking about. And yeah, not all experts will, even if they are experts in their field, not all experts will have something relevant to say to you, because yeah, maybe your life experiences are just too different. So don't listen to all of the experts out there. You have to listen to yourself first, and what your intuition is telling you. That is more important than any opinion from anyone. And don't fall in the trap also of looking at the labels, like, oh, this has an important title. This person must know how everything works. I will listen to what then they say instead of listening to myself. The trap also. So yeah, learn to listen, learn to go within and listen to your voice, and speak your truth. Okay, so I will wrap up this video now. I will keep recording more videos to you, dear watchers. So stay tuned. As always, take care, stay hydrated, and keep learning. Bye for now.